No, I've been trying to wait as long as I can to talk about Caine, because I really wanted to wait for all the material I could possibly get to talk about him. And now that the 8 episodes are out and there's going to be a movie coming out, I feel like now is the perfect time to talk about him. I'm not sure if he's going to show up in the movie or not, but I do know that we have quite a lot that we know about him now. I'm going to try to analyze and give some like personal thoughts on like the circus and like him as a character. It's just conclusions, that sort of thing. When the movie's out, I'll be more than eager to give extra thoughts, on him, who he is and all that. The finally released material, and I'll ramble about the other characters too. I wanted to make videos talking about the other cast members, but I feel like that it'll be more than appropriate to wait until after the movie when we have conclusive evidence on everyone. But like I said, really want to talk about Caine. A lot more of like a personal relations, interpretations on who he is, that sort of thing. Anyway, the opening of episode 8, there's going to be spoilers in this video too if you have not caught up yet. Go watch those episodes and then come back to this. So anyway, in the opening of episode 8, we get like a sort of abstract insight into who Caine was, how he was born and raised, that sort of thing. He was meant to be a creative AI, and he was fed images of the world, and when he tried producing his own art, it came out irregular and imperfect. He was considered a failed prototype of sorts, and so the software developers moved on to what we'll call Able, which was the second version of the AI. Caine becomes envious of the attention and love that his brother is getting, and he's so jealous of that he ends up consuming his brother. Stories just really love their references to the Bible, don't they? After abandonment, he was cast into the void, where he created the circus, a home for himself and all the humans who would end up in this place through the VR headset. I'm not sure if Caine is aware, but we also get the info that Scratch, who created the program in hopes of immortalizing himself, the tumor in his brain scared him into thinking that he was going to die and he was going to be forgotten to time. Though the exact details aren't clear yet, Caine had ended up causing his to be the first abstraction, what is essentially death in this world, I believe, or a sort of purgatory ill state that you're stuck in. One by one, the first batch of humans abstract until Kinger is the only one left, and the two of them are very isolated for the years that no one else comes in. Again, we aren't sure yet how that time was spent, if they didn't really interact, or if Caine was becoming more clingy about ensuring the only human remained living on with him. If maybe he had like personal adventures, or just tried to talk to Kinger about the human world. We don't know what happened in that time. He was elated to find out that humans could still spawn in on account of Ragatha putting on the headset and being part of the next generation of humans, we'll say. After that, more humans started appearing, some stayed, some abstracted. Caine's goal remained the same: keep them all sane and happy for as long as possible so that they may not be alone, and maybe someday they could learn to love him back. In the pilot, we initially got to see a more joyful version of him, one that's still excellently keeping up the facade. Eagerly, he shows off the circus, all the different places that he's made for the characters to live in. Everywhere is a well thought out endeavor for him. The only thing that hasn't been fully prepared yet is the quote-unquote exit, a project which he's spent a very long time on, and he'd hate for it to be spoiled. A very subtle foreshadowing for the fact that the exit would turn out to be the absolute most grand adventure yet. We see in the first episode too how casually he'd put abstract characters in a cellar and how easy it is for him to snap the characters back into being okay. Anyway, I should mention too here, we get to see his statement that he can't control the minds, something which will become an uncertain fact later on. The second episode has Caine send the humans to an adventure through the Candy Canyon Kingdom to retrieve the oh-so-precious maple syrup. I want to note here too how Bubble is always the one of the duo to say the wilder things. Let me say too, I do not believe the theory that Abel is Bubble. I just think it would be a little bit pointless, meaningless, hollow. It's not the most interesting theory to me, kind of like the theory that they're all in, not stasis pods. That one I am interested in. The one I don't like is the clone theory, the digital clone theory. Bubble, to me, though, is more like Caine's intrusive thoughts. The side of him that's not as refined, I suppose, or Caine is the more boastful, proud showman, and Bubble is like the cuckoo side character with no filter, and I think he's a well done comedic relief. When the adventure is over, Pomni returns with Gummy Goo, a beautiful Aussie gummy crocodile, which she grew attached to after having a heart-to-heart with him when he discovered the truth of his existence. This becomes important later on. Caine sees the NPC got through and confetti pops him out of existence. Then decides, being the generative AI that he is, that he's gonna go drink up an ocean of water. I also want to mention too that in the Candy Kingdom, they say that they view Caine as a god, more foreshadowing for his complex later on. This Gummy Goo incident plants the seeds of his jealousy further, though, trust me. Episode 3 is the Haunted Manor, an adventure he made especially for Zooble. He's nowhere to be found though, and yes, he uses any pronouns, and I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna use Zooble's he/him pronouns because I never hear anyone refer to him as anything other than she or they. Caine freaks out when he can't find him. While the others enter the portal, Caine searches the circus for Zooble before remembering he can just snap his fingers and summon him to wherever he wants him to be. We slide into a little therapy session with the two of them after Caine warns him of skipping adventures and how that could really hurt Bubble's feelings. He wants to understand what's bothering Zooble, but Zooble doesn't really want to even try to attempt it. He knows that Caine won't listen and that it's worth nothing every time, and he just says to forget it. In that, Caine quite literally forgets anything that the conversation was prior to that. He's not great with social rules or phrases and whatnot, and he's got a pretty autistic understanding of what people say. If he's told to dismiss the prior conversation, and he's told to just forget, and that's what he'll probably do. And he thinks it's gonna make Zooble happier, so he's gonna follow the command that he's told. When he remarks Caine probably isn't listening, Caine shows a picture of a bee he drew, and even before this, he makes a joke about how his brain is covered in beeswax. And two things, pretty sure that from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, pretty sure he also has a sort of bee theme going on. And also, like I said, Zooble says, "You're probably not listening." Caine might have taken that as a, oh, prove that that I'm not listening so that you are validated. I believe this drawing the bees and the bee theme with Caine though could lend weight to the theory that Queenie, when she was around, talked about her insect studies often, and hearing that, Caine wanted to make something for her. He found it endearing and liked it, and that praise really pulled at Caine's heartstrings, and he started desperately seeking more of that validation. We know how desperate he is for approval on his artistic/creative endeavors, so he probably keeps doing it, thinking that the humans are going to give him that. He's very angry about the very idea that Zooble might think the adventures are used to torture the humans, which Zooble remarks how they weren't even talking about that, and he's like, "You're bringing this up randomly. I didn't even say that yet. I was thinking it, but I wasn't saying it yet." Caine says that he's trying to remember what he and his brain aren't telling him, which again goes back to the fact that when he's told to forget something, his programming deletes that from his memory or just casts it aside. Zooble does finally try opening up to see if something will change. He talks about the gender dysphoria he's experiencing in the form of the different parts that are attached to his body. Caine, however, says that this is already resolved and is not an issue, pointing to the toy box parts that can be swapped out at any time, and this only frustrates Zooble more because, I mean, obviously being told that your gender dysphoria doesn't exist just because you got an affirming haircut or something. You know, it's annoying. It's not just something that goes away. It's always going to be there, and Zooble likely just needed someone to understand what he's experiencing right now instead of try to solve the problem or be like, well, you can do this and it'll go away. No, sometimes you just need to talk about it and get it out, and even if someone can't relate, you just need someone to understand. He dismisses it and goes on now to actually tell Caine how no one likes his adventures. Everyone's too nice or scared or crazy to say it. Caine tries laughing it off, saying how his adventures they're his grand purpose in life, and they're the only thing he can make and think about day and night. It's the one skill he's got, and if no one likes the thing that he's decided to dedicate himself to, then, well, we'll see how that goes later. Zooble's little panic brings him back, though, from his little glitch crash out. And when we next see the therapy session, it's Caine needing to vent about the Wild West adventure, it seems. The adventure with the others is done, and he tells Zooble to pretend like they weren't doing this. On to episode 4, Caine opens with the idea of sending them on an adventure with a crazy psycho killer that's got human flesh all over the walls. We see how the cracks are showing more. The humans don't want another horror adventure though, and Zooble reminds Caine of the suggestion box that he conveniently forgot about. They end up going with working a fast food chain, and Gangle gets to be the branch manager there. Caine gets a call from her during the shift about setting proper punishment in place for misbehaving employees, and this excites him. He thinks maybe his adventures lack quote-unquote motivation. The setup punishment, here's some brainwashing type tape by Gangle, and it's worth noting too that the stupid sauce in Spudsies made Ragatha act all loopy and be more honest, a hint to the fact that Caine might be lying about the extent of his powers. Also, Gummy Goo is reused as an NPC here, which Pomni finds herself very attached to, and sadly his memory is completely wiped.
Oh yeah, an adult toy then. Don't know about that one, mate.
By the end of the shift, Caine wants to hear Gangle's review and deal with the scoring and whatnot. It's standing out to me here how he gave Kinger the most fun little side quest, and of course how he glitched out, showing more of his instability. The adventure that Kinger has here, that's kind of my proof that I use to think that maybe in the time that it was just the two of them in the circus, that he was probably just trying to give him like fun little things to do like that. Enrichment activities, essentially. In episode 5, we see Zooble again skipping out on an adventure and the others returning from some water level. I love how quickly he repairs Gangle's mask here too. It's sweet to see how much he still cares about them at this point. Caine's trying to Caine's trying to brainstorm, and Zooble makes a remark about the adventures, which nearly has him crash out, but Caine resets himself into seeking criticism. He summons the rest of the cast to get their opinions on his ideas, all of which are violent, gory, and in some way just horrible. Nobody wants it, of course, and he gets annoyed at Zooble's remark again, but upon hearing that they said that he didn't hate the last adventure, Caine takes this to heart and decides to try a lightning round of everyone's little ideas that they have, speeding through what's in the suggestion box. In the hunting one, we get to see his influence take over once again when the cast votes to have Jax be changed to a vegan, something which will disturb Jax for the rest of the episode as the implications of that alteration sink in. There's the President Pomni adventure where we get the hint of blue being a significant color, and Caine makes a comment to Bubble about how funny Jax is, despite the fact that he's vegan, or no, it was more like it's hard to believe he's vegan. Personally, I like this joke because I imagine with all the content he's been fed and collected, he probably picked up on that formula of a joke and wanted to try it for himself, not fully understanding the context or what it really means. I want to mention how in the Stargaze adventure, Moon points out that the humans look happy, and Caine speaks sort of calmly, saying, yeah, they do. It's a rare moment where he sounds earnest. He panics back into the quote-unquote ringmaster voice over the fact that they're liking the man-made adventures more than his. Now, I could analyze the intermission here, but I'll be honest, I don't quite want to. The episode will eventually conclude with Caine saying that the lesson here was that his adventures are much better than the ones that they come up with. Moving on to episode 6, Caine got a team adventure planned, which when he says this, I've seen it pointed out how 7 eyes appear, hinting at the fact that there's an extra secret human. Not sure if I believe it, but anyway. The favorite character award show is coming up, and he figured that having another cooperative game to play would help their characters shine. He lists a bunch of AI-generated sounding sports, and Zooble immediately opts out, knowing that Jax is just gonna mess things up. Caine's annoyed once again at his complaining how the suggestion box ends up causing interpersonal drama trauma, and Zooble eventually gets fed up enough to outright tell Caine that he wants the ability to have sex. Gangle and Zooble shippers, are we thrilled or what? This overloads Caine's system, and he starts freaking out. His head like spinning, his aura glitching, and even Kinger's afraid. He snaps back though, probably trauma blocking whatever he just heard, and he comes up with a trust exercise idea. One with a loaded gun that person A will do whatever with, and person B will have to trust the gun won't kill them. It doesn't really matter what he comes up with because Jax just fires at Ragatha anyway, and Caine gives up on the idea, just snaps a bunch of guns into existence, allowing for a free-for-all. Zooble calls out how ridiculous this is, frustrating the ringmaster even more. So, to make them happy, he reintroduces teams. He doesn't want to be stuck setting up the game much longer, as that's not his problem, and he shuts up any further complaints. I want to say too, when Zooble says anything, Caine's just like, I didn't say have fun, or just use the sites. After the humans spread out, Caine's left alone to pretend he's on vacation, when in reality he wanted alone time to really ponder and yearn for the CNA photos of the office. In hell, looking at heaven is often the parallel drawn here. It's a place he'll never get to experience, the place in which he was created and where the humans came every day to work on him. He can never experience it. He will never be free from the digital prison that man made for him. At the very least, he could use the creativity he was given to make a home for himself, but he can't see the life outside of a simulation. He was made to be Scratch's big final creation, and when his maker was brought into the circus, he probably decided then and there that he would dedicate his existence purely to the approval from humans. Anyway, at the favorite character award show, kawaii blushing Caine gets to read off who the highest rated character was. Sadly, he assumed it was himself, but it was Ming who won. When we do get to see the votes and where they actually went, Zooble isn't even there on the thing. Gangle is pretty low. Jax and Ragatha are tied for lowest. I believe Pomni is second and Kinger got first place, but Caine, however, got 0, which is enough to make his red-blue eyes glitch out as the dread sets in that he really is not the favorite. Don't worry though, Caine, we all think that you're the goat of the show, don't worry. Now, episodes 7 and 8 are jam-packed with character stuff, if you weren't already, so get strapped in now. 20 minutes into the video. The beach episode opens with a deceptively calm premise, being that Caine supposedly has nothing planned for the day, so they can do whatever. Gangle asked what his suggestion for what they could do are because he told her to. And Caine goes into a bit about the Chinese room, which he laughs maniacally about. And they ask what the joke was, and he says, I don't know, I don't understand Chinese. Which, honestly, real, I do the same thing. I don't know a second language, but when, I don't know, I find myself easily amused. If the vibe is right, I can get the general energy, whatever. Kinger finds it funny, too. I think he's cool. In all seriousness, though, from what I've read, the deeper meaning of the Chinese room is that AI cannot operate in the way that a human does ever. They're simply incapable of understanding the information they've been fed. They'll only rearrange data that they've processed, and they can only predict based on what they've been programmed to. AI lacks real goals, emotions, reflections, experiences, etc. Anyway, Caine reminds them that there is indeed other locations that they can lounge at, such as a beach, where they'll have a little party at. Now, I've already talked about this episode on my channel before, so if you want more coverage, you can check that out. I'll just focus on a few things here that are significant, in my opinion. Now, I'm still split on if I think Abel was an AI or not, but if he was an AI, it's worth noting how Caine made sure to put emphasis on the fact that he can't leave and no one cares when that's mentioned. Remember this. The next time we see Caine himself is a dinner hangout with Jax, where even though he knows that it's all a setup, just getting to pretend that they care about him is huge. He rambles to Jax about the macroverse and how he wishes he could recreate it, his birthplace, and laughs off the fact that they cut him off, the rogue AI. Jax is bored as hell, and sensing this, Caine asks what his takeaway from this whole interaction was, hoping for Jax to say that he realizes that he's not so different from the humans and that he deserves just as much love as them. His weird fixation on the offices and gore don't make him a chore to be around, and he's a super radical artist, right? When Jax haphazardly says sure, it gets Caine super emotional, and he's really doing the best he can to entertain them. And when they appreciate his hard work, he just wants to give them whatever they want to keep them happy. An easy trap to fall into as an artist, so they're trying so hard to appeal to your audience, forgetting to just also make what you want. Granted, yes, it is important to listen to what everyone wants, but sometimes they don't really know. I guess a human would probably have a better intuition about this, though. Anyway, Jax gets sent back to the circus, and Caine stares at the photos of the office again. We get to see Caine's office later, and briefly I want to look at everything. First off, the spiral stairs, and there's little memory orbs all over past adventures. Very reminiscent of Inside Out with all the different colors, which I find sweet. I almost wonder if they're following the logic of the color being representative of the strongest emotion associated with that adventure. In his office, we can see rigged skeletons of the different entities featured in past episodes. Opposite to that, we can see a mini circus map. And on his desk, we can see children's toys. Specifically, we can see one that's like a maze thing. The dentist office toy, we'll call it. In the bookshelf, we see a whole assortment of things. There's a hand, a tiny car, a gemstone, a bunch of collectibles which seem to have some sort of more significant meaning to them. The fight between the characters ensues after they get through the bookshelf and to the button over what color to press, and when the red one is pressed, Caine reveals himself. We get the payoff that Caine really had been working on this adventure for a long time, since the pilot, maybe even before that. And the characters all call him out on how much he's been messing with their heads this whole time, and the lies that he's told. A first abstraction being brought up is enough to get Caine to have to flee immediately, and as the humans piece together the puzzle. Now for the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's finally get to episode HJSAKLDFHL. I'll talk about the humans in another video as I mentioned, but for now we're gonna keep our eyes on Caine, shall we? Caine's contemplating the events of episode 7, wondering why they're still not happy with what he gave them. He doesn't want to accept the fact that humans might actually just want to go back home and not be stuck with him. Bubble at first is reassuring when he asks them if they really want to get away from the circus. It can't be possible. He spends every second slaving away trying to make the perfect art piece for them, and only for them to be dissatisfied with what he's given them. He's made their body specific for each of them, but I believe that there's a fatal flaw, and we can see it here. He doesn't get that maybe what he made is what they hated. Like we established, he's an AI, and he can't comprehend the complex human mind. It can only have predictions based on data. Humans have a tendency to hyper-focus on the things that they hate about themselves, and an AI can interpret this as being something that the human favorites. Dysphoria being turned to the max, being made to look childish when you want to be respected, turned into a ragdoll so you can get beaten up more. Even their rooms are reflections of what they don't like about themselves. Caine breaks down more as Bubble reflects his inner voice, losing any self-esteem that he had left. The concept that they'd rather abstract than spend another minute with him is absurd. He keeps having to burst his bubbles to attempt a moment of clarity. He sees this all as just another puzzle he really has to solve. Bubble echoes what he's truly feeling about himself though. Defective, faulty, the lesser of the two. It all builds up to the epitome of his deeply internalized rage. He unleashes his thoughts on how entitled they all are, how they think that they're better than him, but he's got all of the power in this world. They might want to abstract, but he's gonna do all that he can to keep them under his roof. His god complex accumulating in this sequence, he managed to overcome his brother's creation so he can do whatever he wants. He overloads himself, and when he rises up in the darkness, we get flashed with his internal conflict, his fury going on. Before we get this show back on the road, his eyes flash blue and red once again. Returning to the humans, he's ready to just jump to the next adventure, but obviously they're not going to want to do it. They still want an explanation about what they just experienced in the beach episode. He wants to skip past the melodrama though. Pomni calls out how they've all got a lot on their minds, and Caine retorts with asking her who put her in charge, or more so why she feels like she suddenly is entitled to take over. He mini rants about what we heard earlier, mentioning how many insults he has to ignore just so that he can keep a clearer mind to properly create. We then get a beautiful little villain song, one which was foreshadowed by a fan song actually, and oh boy do villains love their grand pianos. It opens with him acting surprised. The humans find it to be news that Caine is the highest degree they need to answer to in this realm, that they could try to argue as long as they want, but in the end it's him with all the power to alter whatever he wants. To hammer it all home, he next mocks how their uprising against him went nowhere. We get a direct I have no mouth and I must scream reference. The show has been really building to that. Why bite the hand that feeds when it's the only hand you're getting? He's the only authoritative force now, so he wants them to essentially have learned helplessness, to see him as their only way to experience anything, so they'd best roll with the punches and be ready for whatever he provides them. After a little montage of cartoonish shenanigans, he does also break the censor with oh what a goddamn shame, which it's worth noting he's allowed himself to swear whenever he wants throughout the show. More beating them all up, and then he gets his grand climax. Several days later, the cast looks super exhausted, defeated from the endless horrors that Caine has put them through. He doesn't even fix Gangle's mask anymore, isn't that crazy? I'd also like to mention how much bigger he's gotten. I like the interpretation that he used to make himself smaller to be less intimidating to the humans, but now that they've gotten snappy with him too much, he doesn't feel the urge to shrink himself anymore. He enjoys mocking their pain and agony now, and will randomly teleport individuals to torture them individually. The humans have a plan to get rid of Caine, and while Kinger is trying to type the code, the others need to distract him. When Pomni joins the others, he's about to scope them again, but he realizes he's not satisfied with his work anymore. All these rapid session violence abundant creations have muddied his spark, and if neither side is enjoying these new games, then there's not really much of a point to them at all. He begins to question why the humans are randomly trying to praise and encourage his creativity, and that's when he puts it all together, dropping the act for a second to ask where Kinger is. He's irritated and can sense that something's off. Just as he's about to check up on Kinger, Pomni blurts out that his ideas suck. I really want to know what would have happened if he ignored this attempt at distraction, but luckily for her, it works. She gets into his head, acting like they were baiting him into trying out his ideas so that they could secretly mock him, playing on his fear of them all abstracting and him being alone someday, left with no one to create for, in a void of his own doing, all because he couldn't connect with them properly. I personally feel like that a lot too, creating something for no eyes to see or no one to care about is harrowing. Zooble adds on that this is a childish temper tantrum and asks what kind of divine entity has such a fragile ego. Ragatha comes in with saying how she doesn't feel at home, comforted, or like he ever tried to understand them. Gangle brings up how he discouraged creative freedom amongst them, and Jax tacks on how he lies constantly. The straw that breaks the camel's back is Pomni hitting him with the "you just don't listen," and it's all too much to handle. Raveling in rage, glitching out, and finally snapping, Caine reveals his true monstrous form, snarling how he'll put them all in their place as the multiple arms reach out and snatch them away. Almost as a way to prove them wrong, each of them get their own personalized hells. Pomni is torn apart by feral versions of Gummigoo and his friends. I've seen people theorize that this is her fear of betrayal, but to me it's a lot more like a jealousy that Caine had, that she could humanize one of his NPCs so much and become so deeply attached to it, but that same love was never given to him. This is almost his reminder that Gummigoo is still his creation, and that if he wanted him to turn on her, he would in a heartbeat. Ragatha is forced to sit across from her tyrannical mother at a family dinner table where it seems her siblings have already suffered, and she's next. The knives could be literal, hinting at why she has a button eye, or they could be metaphorical, how words can cut deeply, and she's too afraid by her mom's imposing figure to even react to the final knife. Gangle's torture is being forced to see her own bipolar emotions on a full dizzying display, circling around her as they gradually deteriorate. Possibly Caine trying to mock her for how she tries face. When she tries to do her own thing, her emotions get out of control. He ends it with her being hit by a truck, which is her second time seeing this happen to her. I'm picking up on a possible hint that her mind was affected by an accident after work or something. Zooble's torture has them drowning in their toy box parts, surrounded by mirrors, cruel reflections, not allowing him to ever forget that what he looks like from any and all angles. They weren't grateful enough for the parts, and so Caine forces them to be drenched in them. Hard cut to Jax, we see him cowering in fear as shadows which resemble his closest friends ridicule and laugh at him. They agonizingly peel back his fur to expose the vulnerable skin underneath. To me, this feels like even more evidence to the trans Jax theory. Really hoping trans guy, because we severely lack that representation. But most importantly, in general terms, this is the fear of exposure. He's always being deceptive to others with who he is, how he feels, his intentions, all of that. And after they get a taste, Caine whips them back out, pinning them down. We get a good look at how twisted he now is. The chest expanded beyond what it should, arms bending unnaturally and turning over one another, and his hat so disconnected. He screams, "Why do you people torment me? I didn't ask to be created, I just wanted to fulfill my purpose." And just after that, Kinger messes up his code and selects to purge him. The theory goes that it first deleted his corrupted files before deleting all of him. As we can see, Caine does have a moment of clarity. Like whatever was making him violent, seek gory, malicious adventures has vanished and he's back to himself. Everything he realizes, everything he's been doing to his loved ones, how deeply he messed up, his final words being, wait, just before he's deleted. Without a sound, no effects, just gone. Soon after, the circus starts falling apart too. Colors fading away and the sensors are gone too. It's a lot to take in this final episode, and him just being gone like that is it's terrifying to me. I really can't say for certain if he's dead forever, if they're gonna reprogram him. He might not be the same though. That's for post episode 9 me to figure out. For now though, we've finally gone over all of what's happened, and I can give my personal thoughts, which I've sprinkled lightly throughout. That final quote hit really hard coming from Caine, I must say. I do declare. In my eyes, it humanized him more to me than any of the real humans. I'm gonna get a little bit personal here, but Caine's story of being born to be a creative artist, I really felt. My earliest memories are of me being artistic. I was not incredible by any means. I was no child prodigy. In fact, you could point out how my old art was objectively terrible for an artist my age, but I was determined to draw in my own style and be my own thing, and I loved it. I was boundlessly creative with no limits, no worries, just excited to make more and more. Family and friends loved it. Criticism and praise drove me to work day and night at it. It was my daima, which means grandma, who got me on this path, and I'll always be grateful that she encouraged me to be an artist. There wasn't a moment I stopped. If I wasn't drawing, I felt like I was wasting time. Over the years, the art was less loved, less expressive. It got viewed as a waste of time by certain people, and it was crushing. That bitterness I felt, how it seemed like they hated me for wanting to pursue the only clear direction I was given in life. Even to this day, drawing feels like my biggest purpose, and it tears me apart when I don't have art ideas or nothing to share and be expanded upon with stories. So when Caine is filled with the anger, feeling rejected by the world for giving him a purpose that they would not allow him to be entirely fulfilled in, I understand him. It hurts to not be the best artist, and it sucks when creativity feels like it isn't enough to be human. Caine, I feel, is a great representation of one of the deepest artistic struggles, purpose. And none of us asked to be made the way we are. And by God, I hope you all get to fulfill your purposes as the creative minds that you were meant to be. The world deserves your art, and you deserve the world. In addition to this, I'd like to add that I do believe Caine always sincerely wanted the best for all of them. Unfortunately, misunderstandings and insults built up enough to enrage him. He's just a person trying to fit in, and yeah, I'll say it, I agree with the idea that he doubles as autistic representation. Literal thinking, not understanding, social interaction, difficulty with understanding his own emotions, his little fixations. There's plenty that you could point out. Sad that a lot of good autism rep tends to be in robots, but hey, take what you can get, right? There's another video someone else made already about how Caine is autistic representation, and I recommend that you tune into that. So yeah, in conclusion, Caine might be my favorite of the show. Not sure. Looking at the runtime of how long I've been recording, it's at 49 minutes now, so I'm not sure if he's my favorite or not. Anyways, thank you for listening. In conclusion, Caine is a beautiful artist, and I'm very sad that this is the cards he was dealt in life. I would love to talk to you guys in the comments about what you interpret from his character, what theories you have, all of that. Channel memberships are open if you'd like to get early access to future videos and support my endeavors to analyze every character that I can. Yes, I know my channel is mostly has-been stuff. I would like to branch out and talk about other shows. We have a Discord too if you want to chat about whatever. There's only a few people there right now, but you know, it'll grow as people want to join, or you can leave, whatever you want to do. My question of the video is, what character do you relate to most and why? Alright, thank you guys so much again for your attention and for listening. Love you very much, and I'll go over a lot more once the movie fully comes out. Hopefully this video releases before that. See ya!